Chicago Teachers Union President Karen Lewis has dedicated her life to fighting for the right of all families to live, learn, and prosper in safe and healthy communities. As CTU President, Karen has stood side by side with working families to champion a living wage, public investment, and economic development for all communities, the accountable use of taxpayer dollars, an elected school board, an end to failed school closings, and ethical and honest government.
Thank you. It's very nice. I love how people find more stuff to say about me. It's very kind. And thank you for having me in the 46th Ward. It's a privilege. People don't realize that it's not easy. People don't have to pull this together and find some place and have some place where people's voices can be heard. What I find the most interesting is the possibility of what can happen if we seriously talk about changing the political landscape in Chicago. And what we can talk about is what works in every neighborhood is democracy. It is. Democracy works everywhere. Now, is it tough? Is it difficult? Absolutely. But it is worth it. What I see throughout this country is more and more and more voter suppression. But don't be fooled and think it's just in the South. It's everywhere. It's here too. Mm-hmm. People want people to not be engaged in the political process. And there are reasons for that. Because once you're engaged and involved in the political process, then you expect to not only have voice, but you expect to be responded to. There have been a multitude of studies done over the last few years about how laws reflect the constituents of politicians. And what they're finding is more and more laws are actually reflecting the needs and the desires of the donors as opposed to the constituents. This is something that we see nationwide. And Chicago, of course, is a microcosm of it. So how do we change that? We change it by electing people who are committed to democracy, are unabashedly, outwardly outspoken about that, and place demands on them. There are a variety of ways to do things. People are talking about right now what bad shape Chicago is in financially, public safety-wise, public education-wise, whatever they want. There's this spin on where we are as a city, but also as citizens of the city and residents. So the question is, what is our responsibility as residents of this city to do? And our major responsibilities are to find candidates who believe in what we believe in. Participatory democracy requires work. This is not about one single election. This is about building a political infrastructure that resembles everyone and that speaks to everyone, not one election and one office. If we're only looking at one election and one office, then we have narrowed our focus, and it makes it even harder and harder and harder to demand accountability from our elected officials. So what I'm hoping is that people here are committed to a participatory democracy, and that people here are committed to things like an elected representative school board. Transparency and accountability around the budget. Every single ward should have access to the information. Every single ward. And we should come together and say, you know what, this year, we're going to just focus on potholes, okay? Or whatever you choose, whatever you decide that's good for your ward. We're going to focus on that. Maybe next year we'll focus on something different. But if you're not part of the process, and if someone is just telling you, here's the plan, then when your services don't meet up to your standards, who do you really have to complain to? Oh, somebody else made the plan. I wasn't in on that. And I think this notion of taking responsibility not just for voting, but for what happens after the election is something we can all agree that we need to work harder at. But those doors have been relatively closed to us. Even if you go talk to your alderman about an issue, you'll get a nice shake of the hand, thank you, we appreciate you took the time to come in, but do you always get followed through? Do you always get... But the good thing about having aldermen is you keep running into them in the grocery stores, and the bookstores, and things of that nature. So, but we have to have that same kind of participatory democracy across the city. That is the only thing that's going to change the political landscape. Or we will get people who are further and further and further out of touch with our needs. So again, this is about changing the political infrastructure. And if you're down for that, I think that you're someone who would vote for someone like me if I would choose to run.